Hi, my name is Melanie Thorley and I'm a solicitor at MJT Law. Today we're going to talk about client expectations when working with a solicitor. It is pretty normal for most people to never have had experience with solicitors before, but for perhaps purchasing a home. So working with an employment lawyer means that you're working with them quite intimately. You're providing a lot of details about what's going on in your environment, in your life, perhaps your business. And it's important for you to understand what it might be like, and what we need to understand the client expectations, and you need to understand what it's like working with a solicitor too. So we're just going to talk a little bit about the obligations that solicitors have and a little bit about client expectations. So when a client calls me, whether that be employee or employer, the first thing I want to know is what's going on. This is because solicitors need to understand the whole picture. There might be things about the story that we don't need to know, but it's probably a good idea for you to let us make that decision. The same goes for the documents that you send through. If you redact them or you give us only a sample of the documents, we're not going to get a really full picture about what's happening, and it's probably a good idea just to let us make the decision of whether the document is important or not important. When it comes to working with a solicitor, it's also important. Client expectations. It's also important for us to understand what your outcome is. Solicitors are really great problem solvers, but we can't solve a problem unless we know what the end result is. That can be really hard for you, because sometimes you might not know what you want, but you know what the problem is, and then there's a bit of a gap area there you need to talk through with us. That's perfectly fine, but if you do know what you want, an outcome is the best way that we can say, this is how we're going to strategize to get there. We are master strategists, so we will be able to figure out a way to try and achieve that outcome that you want. And you can talk through with us whether your outcome's realistic, whether it's possible, whether there's something else that you might be more interested in, because we can talk about the different outcomes that might be available to you. So look, it's perfectly okay for you not to understand your complex legal issue. It's just really important that you're open with us and that we have a really good idea as to what is important to you, what isn't important to you. Things that we might think are important, like money, might not be important to you, or we might think that your reputation is really important, and that might not be something that you're particularly worried about. So we just need to be on the same page, and it helps when you tell us what's going on. Now I want to talk about obligations of solicitors, because there is sometimes there can be a little bit of a confusion around what people think we do and what we actually can do. What we hear a lot is that, with no malintent, is that solicitors lie for a living. The interesting thing is, we absolutely do not do that. Yes, we may expand on certain points of truths, but we are certainly not lying for a living. The thing is, we have three what we call our highest duties. The first duty is to the court, and we must not mislead the court. And examples of this are we are not able to make up defences. We're not able to make up a story and just make it so by saying it is. We're not able to make up evidence. We're able to use the evidence we have to formulate an answer, but that answer, we cannot present an answer we know to be false. And there is, once we know something about the court, we must admit to it. And if we know if we've said something that we then later find out to be false, we must admit that to the court as well. And this is how everybody operates. All solicitors, certainly in Queensland and certainly, I believe, in Australia, have these same obligations. The second duty is to our client. Now that means that we have a duty to keep your information confidential, and the correspondence between yourself and your solicitor are what we call privileged. Waiving privilege is a matter for you, it's not a matter for the solicitor. and our duty is to you. So sometimes you might hear that you might have experienced what we call a conflict. You might call up a solicitor and you'll say, I need A, B and C, and they go, oh, who's the other side of this matter? And you'll say it's Z. And they look up Z company and they're like, we can't act for you, I'm sorry. And they might even go as far as to say, there is a conflict of interest, we already act for Z. But that is to protect both parties' interests. Just like you would not want a solicitor to be acting on the other side of a matter that's to do with you. You wouldn't want the same solicitor to be acting on the other side of a matter that's to do with you. You wouldn't want, we have the same duty to other people as well and to other companies as well. The third duty is to the profession. And this is a really complex duty and not necessarily one that you need to be too concerned about, but it's about the way we interact with each other. So we need to give each other respect. We need to be able to be honest with each other. If we say something is happening, the other side need to believe that. So our reputation is everything. So if I just go back to that beginning proposition, with no malice at all, people sometimes think that solicitors lie for a living. You can see how, because of our duties, that is absolutely not what we're trying to be doing here. If we do inadvertently say something that is not truthful, we then have to admit that to the people that we told the untruth to. And sometimes it's inadvertent. We might be doing it, we won't even realise it, and at some point we know. And other times a document will come up and we'll go, that changes the whole matter, now we have to disclose. And look, don't let that tie you up into knots too much. The complexity around legal matters will be fully explained to you, certainly through MJT Law, and should be to your other solicitors. But try not to get too caught up in, I don't want to hand this piece of evidence over to my solicitor because then they'll disclose it to the other side. Remember, our second duty is to our client. So we do not disclose matters to the other side unless we are instructed to do so. The other thing to think about is we're actually not decision makers in anything that we do. Accountants kind of have a situation, and any accountants out there might be able to make notes on this and send them in to me, but it's my understanding that accountants basically tell their clients what they need to do. And that's perfectly legitimate for accountants to be able to do that. But lawyers can't do that. All we can say is what things are and what the options are. We don't make the decision, we can't tell you what to do. We act purely on instructions. So another way that we can say it is we're totally law slaves. We just do what we're told when we're told to do it. Examples of that might be, a complex example of that might be, there is something that happens that you want your solicitor to deal with. The solicitor doesn't necessarily think it's a good idea, they tell you so. I don't think, we do not recommend this course of action. You say, I'm going to get you to do it anyway. Now it's a matter for the solicitor whether they go ahead and do it, but they will let you know that they act on instructions and they will go ahead and do that, but they do not recommend it. The other thing is, there may be an opportunity for that solicitor to say, look, you're no longer listening to my advice. We are advisors here and you're no longer, you're not interested in listening to it and agreeing, and following it. So we believe that there is a relationship breakdown there and we can no longer act for you. Look, try not to get too caught up in that as well, but that's some of the complexities around we can't tell you what to do and we don't make decisions for you. We are a conduit to you to get your legal answers and your legal outcomes. We are not the people that do it. Well, thank you for watching today. Hopefully that's been of some help to you. Give us a call if you've got any questions. See ya.